The other day, I came across this survey given to college freshmen asking them the importance or how essential certain life objectives are. The results aren't all that surprising. I feel like they already confirm what each of us already knows or believes. They're just a little sad to me that we're more focused on being well off than we are on being well lived. If we ask ourselves, how did we get to this point? We've got to wind it back. And I seriously believe that it all starts with the parental or broader societal expectations that you and I grow up with. And not to be that guy who just pulls more surveys out of a hat, but in this survey, when parents were asked, what is a priority for their children, the majority said be financially independent or have jobs or careers they enjoy. The results of the survey aren't all that surprising. I mean, what rational parent wouldn't want their kids to build a life on financial independence and career? Well, I have some gripes there because parents are being asked what they want their kids to do, which makes sense, right? As a parent, you want to rest easy knowing you've fulfilled your responsibilities and obligations as a parent. And to be able to say you were a successful parent, which just sounds weird, but again, everything is a comparison game these days. It's a lot easier to measure that through quantifiable numbers and metrics, which careers and financial independence indicate, right? Whereas on the other hand, who you are as a human being is qualifiable and not as measurable, right? Which is a shame because ultimately that's what we should be asking ourselves as parents or future parents. What kind of human being do I hope to nurture into this world? And I think that's sort of where we get lost in translation and how we end up at that point of valuing being well off more than being well lived, is that we forget just how hard kids actually have it. On one hand, they are independently trying to explore the world and themselves, but on the other hand, they are entirely dependent on their parents, their caregivers, for their basic survival needs. Food, shelter, connection, self-esteem, belonging, you name it. And you bet that when push comes to shove, those basic survival needs are going to win out 99.9% of the time. And that's when you see kids adopt the aspirations or expectations of their parents. They focus more on doing and press pause on being. They focus on going to college to get a job, start a family, and so on. But when you follow the aspirations, the hopes of someone other than yourself, that's exactly how you fall onto paths that may not be the best fit for you. It happened to me, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. I'm sure we're all familiar with the term well off and the standard qualifiers or indicators. The respectable house in a respectable neighborhood, the respectable car or two parked in the driveway, the annual family vacation photos, kids being able to graduate with an education debt-free. All the makings for an upper middle class experience. One I was fortunate and privileged enough to receive. And We can definitely see the parental influence or cycle rather here, right? That plays into 18-year-olds valuing being well off more than well lived. When parents hope for their kids to be financially independent, I really believe that they just want their kids to have enough to support themselves and their own families if they choose to have one. I don't believe they're implying that their kid should go off and endlessly pursue materialistic wealth. But as 18-year-olds tend to be, especially with social media, we warp having enough into being well off, or rather, having more than enough. But when we're so focused on having more than enough, we're never really satisfied with what we do have. We live for the future rather than the present. Work hard now, relax later. If there were any 5 words I could choose to describe my entire upbringing, those would be it. And don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for the immigrant mentality or work ethic my parents ingrained in me because I genuinely wouldn't be who or where I am today without it. I honestly believe we take this sentiment or approach way too far because when we're so focused on living for this supposed future life of relaxation, we neglect living the life that's right in front of us in the present. In my case, I was entirely guilty of this. The path I was on out of college was neatly laid out for me, step by step, had all the makings of a successful career in conventional senses, right? And I went into it fully acknowledging that my life would basically be put on pause for at minimum 2 years. That I would essentially have little control over my life. I would be working in a demanding, stressful, unhealthy environment, and that I wouldn't have the same opportunities that other 20 some year olds with newfound freedom and independence would have. But as I was raised, I rationalized all of this. I convinced myself that it was worth it. I would say things like, I don't care for weeknight dinners or drinks, so what am I really missing out on? I have it way easier than my immigrant parents ever did. There's no reason I can't do this. But it was never a question of whether I could do this or not, but rather, did I actually want to? And sitting here quite literally almost exactly a year after I quit that job and knowing who I am, yeah, my soul couldn't take it, but c'est la vie, right? All of the blood, sweat, and tears that I'd put into just barely landing onto this path in life. A week in, I was already questioning, is this it? But each day for the next 6 months, I made a conscious decision to stay because just like I'd done throughout my entire life, I looked to the future. I rationalized that if I just stuck to the plan, that I would eventually reach the pot of gold that was supposedly waiting for me at the bottom of the rainbow. But the thing is, it was never my plan. And I wish I could ask my younger self isn't the rainbow beautiful enough as it is? Last survey, I swear, despite parents prioritizing financial independence and career for their children, when asked what their definition of the well lived life is, their answers differ dramatically. Wealth and career fall by the wayside. We see relationships and societal impact shoot to the top. Two ingredients I believe are absolutely necessary to a well lived life. Because while people are typically used to answering the question, tell me about yourself or who are you, with what they do, I firmly believe that the way you relate to someone or something else is a true indicator of your character, of who you are. To do or to be, that is the question. If we think back to the graph I showed at the beginning of the video, we remember that developing a meaningful philosophy for life is valued less than being financially well off. But when you think about it, one lies in the future, right? Whereas the other rests in the present. So I'd at least hope that if you're pursuing being financially well off, you'd understand the benefits of compounding. And being well off is pretty narrow in what you can do with that, right? Whereas developing a meaningful philosophy for life is boundless. Because ultimately, it's shaped by who you are and the person you aspire to be. And there's absolutely no limits on the person you can become.